All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, the biggest shocker from night one of the 2024 NFL Draft easily had to be the Atlanta Falcons using the eighth overall pick on quarterback Michael Penix Jr. Just last month, the Falcons signed veteran quarterback Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal for 180 million, with 100 million of that being guaranteed. And just 6 weeks later, Atlanta turned around and used their first round pick on Penix. Now, I know that there are going to be some that will argue and say, well, Atlanta has their quarterback of the present and now their quarterback of the future. But I'm in the category of those who disagree with that. Why? Because if you're the Falcons and you liked Penix, then you still could have used your first round pick on him and not have allocated so much money to Cousins. I say this because, all right, you got the combine, in February. You sit back, you watch this kid play all year long, in college for Washington. I know that Raheem Morris was not the head coach last year for the Falcons, but nonetheless, you get started on this process, after the season ends in January. And for me, it's one of those where you're going to say, hey, you know what? If you want Michael Penix, go all in on Michael Penix. That's fine. But now you've allocated money to Kirk Cousins where it could have been used for other positions on the field, a la, fixing your defense. On the flip side, if you wanted Cousins, like you went out there and signed him last month, then hey, instead of using that first round pick on Penix, now you can go out there and fix your defense, a la a Dallas Turner who was right there for you. It's just one of those where it's a head scratcher because now we're talking about the Falcons having a logjam at the quarterback position, and at the end of the day, only one quarterback can play. And I guarantee you that if Cousins had known this, that the Falcons would have been looking at a quarterback in round one, then I think he'd have been looking at other teams to sign with. Why? Because no quarterback, no veteran quarterback, okay, wants to be looking over his shoulder to the heir apparent because at the end of the day, he can see the writing on the wall. And, for me, Michael Penix does have talent. And I think, in the right situation, he can be cultivated. Now, of course, he's going into a situation where he is not going to start right away because you have the veteran in Kirk Cousins. But nonetheless, this is why certain teams in the National Football League don't win because, for number one, this move has me perplexed. Number two, like I said last night, when you have those early picks in the first round, you're picking there for a reason. And anytime you go out there and pick a guy at a position where you already have filled that need, when you have other needs at other positions, it's one of those where it sets your team back because if you're picking that high, you need a guy that's going to come and have an impact on your team right now. Michael Penix is not going to have an impact on this Falcons team right now. And it's one of those where, the Falcons are going to say, and that's their prerogative. I'm totally understand that, hey, we have our quarterback of the future. But for the sake of argument, you sign Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal. Okay, if you make this move 2 years from now, maybe 3 years from now, I got no problem with it because Kirk Cousins is on his way out the door. Now, this changes the whole narrative for that if you're the Falcons. To me, I think this was a bad utilization by resources by the Falcons. Some people are going to say this has Arthur Blank, the team owner, written all over it. I mean, it's one of those where we know Rich McKay has a lot of stroke in that front office as well. You got the general manager, Terry Fontenot, and you have the head coach in Raheem Morris. For me, I just think it sends a bad signal, in my opinion, because if you're the Falcons, you spent all of this time over the offseason courting Kirk Cousins. You sign them, you bring them in, the press conferences, the media, you name it. And now you turn right back around on night one of this year's NFL draft and you go out there and draft another quarterback. It's one of those where, okay, you're hearing the reports. Cousins and Michael Penix have talked. Everything is cool. But at the end of the day, if Kirk Cousins has a bad game, what's going to happen? Are we going to say, "Oh, it's time to go to Michael Penix"? One of those deals. It's just something that if you're the Falcons, you just created a problem that was not there by this selection. I think Penix does have talent, and I said this in the right situation. You have to protect him with a solid offensive line. Of course, there is talent at the skill positions in Atlanta. You look at Drake London at wide receiver, but John Robinson and Tyler Algier at running back, as well as Kyle Pitts at tight end. So the skill positions are not the problem. And of course, Penix is going to have the opportunity to learn from a veteran such as Kirk Cousins. But at the end of the day, the Falcons, to me, I think, did more bad than good with this situation because I think they created an issue that was not there. Uh, I'm perplexed by it. I will continue to be perplexed by it. There are people, who probably will agree with me. There are going to be people that will disagree with me. It's all good. But nonetheless, this is a head scratcher. This was a head scratcher. And I simply don't get what the Falcons were doing. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.